If you were attacked by a bear that was totally geeked out of its mind on booger sugar, what would you do? Nature's perfect killing machine just got a taste of the good stuff, and now she's got a habit to put Scarface to shame. Needless to say, you really don't want to get between this freak and her fix. Then again, you probably won't even get a chance to, because at this point, she's killing just about anything that moves. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat URSUS AMERI-COCAS in Bear. Dee Dee is a bit of a troublemaker, which is why instead of going to class today, she and her friend Henry decided to ditch and hike up to a nearby waterfall. However, it seems somewhere along the line, they took a wrong turn as they suddenly find themselves smack dab in the middle of an after-school special.
Hey Henry, check it out. This is definitely that thing.
That's a rather astute observation for an 8th grader, don't you think? Kinda makes you wonder what her home life must be like, especially since she's absolutely right. Only question now is whether any G.I. Joes will spawn in to stop them from throwing their lives away. Sadly, the answer is no, although that shouldn't be necessary as long as at least one of these precocious little tax write-offs has a brain in their skull. I mean, if you're worldly enough to know exactly what that is without even opening the package, you should also know to stay the fuck away from it. It's not like the Easter Bunny left this here. Whoever owns this crap will almost certainly be coming back for it. And the kind of people who deal in amounts like this probably aren't all that picky about the age of their victims. All this is to say, we need to head home immediately and tell absolutely no one what we found out here today. Sure, reporting it might help Scruff McGruff take a bite out of the crime, but if word gets out that a couple middle schoolers just found the mother lode and some of it goes unaccounted for, we run the risk of Anton Chigurh showing up at recess with a fresh roll of quarters. Besides, there's bound to be more than Sicarios poking around the forest today, and with no one else around, a couple runts like them might as well be wearing picnic baskets.
Don't move muscle.
Shoulda stayed in school. Yo, nerds. Bears on White Pow is scary and all, but you know what's scarier? Some of the freak shows AI creates. See for yourself by checking out today's sponsor, Wonder AI. The Wonder AI app is pretty cool. It's an app that you can download and it turns words into digital art. It's super easy to use. All you need to do is download the app and enter a prompt. Pick one out of the 10+ art styles and the app generates your thoughts into art. I like how many different styles they have, like novelistic, mystical, oil painting, and so many more. I'm using the premium version, which includes 20+ styles. The app is faster, there's unlimited art, and no ads. The White Bear inspired me to try out a few of my own. Check out what Wonder came up with when I entered laughing bear eating an alligator in a dress with a mystical art style. Or this one was good. Bears in war using marshmallow flamethrower with a novelistic art style. Doesn't look like a major war, but I'm digging the outfit. Okay, enough with the bears. How about a beach sunset with toy poodles running around in the oil painting style? Cute. Click my link in the description to download Wonder and get a free trial of the premium version so you can go put your imagination to work with Wonder. Well, so much for them. Or at least one of them, anyway. I mean, it's certainly what we're left to believe, considering they both just violated the cardinal rule of bear safety. Running away is pretty much the worst thing that they could have done short of slathering themselves in honey and calling her out on Facebook. A full-grown black bear can run as fast as 30 miles per hour, if not faster, so there's no way anyone's getting away on foot, especially someone with stubby little legs like Henry and Dee Dee. Of course, you may recall the old saying, if it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. However, this only applies in the event of a bear attack, and until they both rang the dinner bell and triggered her predator response, this was merely a bear encounter, albeit an extremely close one. All the same, the best course of action would have been to stand their ground and try to make themselves appear as large and non-delicious as possible. Easier said than done when you're a small fry, I know, but removing their hats and Henry's jacket and slowly waving them over their heads might confuse the bear's sense of scale. From there, I would slowly move back and away from the bear while keeping keeping it square in front of me. Oh, yeah, and try to relax the whole time. You know, cause that totally won't be impossible, right? Still, projecting an air of tranquility can often keep things from escalating, and speaking to the bear in a low, firm voice can help keep you calm, while also signaling to the bear that you're not its typical afternoon snack. All that being said, if diplomacy fails and the bear becomes aggressive, then we fall back on the aforementioned words of wisdom and lash out at City's eyes and snout with everything we've got. There's just one problem. You see, there's actually a third part to that saying that's rarely repeated down in the lower 48. If it's white, say goodnight. Sure, this oversized so might look like a black bear, but the inside of its nostrils are like frickin' Greenland right now. Fact is, a grown man couldn't swing a 2x4 hard enough to seriously injure a bear. Best case scenario, fighting back will intimidate it into retreating. But if it's all hopped up on Bolivian marching powder, intimidation is likely out of the question. I mean, just look at how that junk affects people. I'm not saying we lay down and die, but we should probably temper our expectations. Now, you're probably wondering how a lowly woodland creature gained access to high-end stimulants. Well, it turns out there was more than just the one brick DD found. A lot more. Which is where partners in crime Eddie and David come into the picture. Evidently, one of their organization's cargo planes went down somewhere in the area, but the pilot managed to dump the goods out over the forest before they could go up in flames. As for the pilot himself, well, things didn't go so well. At least he didn't see it coming. At any rate, this dynamic duo was tasked with tracking down the missing product to keep their boss from getting burned alive in a stack of tires. You heard me, every last bit by themselves. And God knows how many acres of forest, without any kind of tracking technology to guide them along the way. Basically, they were sent there to die, especially since neither of them brought any kind of supplies they might need for the multi-week process of combing the woods for a handful of gym bags the size of, well, gym bags. And then there's the fact that any number of these bags could have landed in the water, gotten snagged up in a tree, recovered by locals, or consumed by local wildlife. Suffice it to say, this is an absolute fool's errand, and they should instead be redirecting this effort towards changing their identities and laying low for the next couple years, not only to escape the cartels, but also the police. Oh, well, I guess they already came all this way. Might as well take a couple laps through the hiking loops so we can at least say we tried when the hit squad comes through to nail us to the ceiling. Of course, that's assuming we don't fall victim to a roving band of trail trash first.
Empty your pockets.
Since you asked so nice.
You think this is a joke?
I do.
Spoiler alert, it is. And the punchline is David absolutely mopping the floor with these punks for just under a minute straight. You know what they say about everyone thinking they're a gangster until a gangster walks in? Poor bastards had no idea who they were screwing with. That said, it sure was nice of them to attack one at a time like that. Seriously, you call that an ambush? Should have had Chris Farley go in alone first and pretend to use the stalls. Then, when the mark starts walking out, you can hit him from both sides. Maybe have the sleeper agent throw him in a full Nelson while Blondie works him over with the Bali song, prison style. On the flip side, if we didn't have David's nobody level fighting skills to fall back on, about our only option would have been to exercise a little purposeful compliance until we could make it to the Beretta in the glove box. Yet another reason why you keep your tools on you at all times, especially if you're in this line of work. Of course, we wouldn't have had to do anything if Eddie bothered to pull his frickin' head out once in a while. Some partner you are. You're really gonna let a bunch of guys that look like this corner your buddy in the bathroom. Dude should have been out there to earhole these losers the second the knife came out. Whatever, it all worked out in the end, and David made it out without so much as a scratch. Well, almost. Besides, if he hadn't put these lowlives in a coma, they might have never found the brick they were holding. Now, they just need one of these losers to show them where they hid the rest, provided any of them actually survive the beatdown.
Where's the rest of it?
My bud's dead.
Well, if they're not, they will be. Last thing we need is them waking up 5 minutes later and slashing our tires. Plus, they could easily tell the cops we were the ones that jumped them, which by itself wouldn't be that big of a deal were it not for the fact that we're going to be returning to this very spot with their kidnapped friend and 100 pounds of... Sorry, punks, you messed up big time on this op. I say we load the other two in the pickup and take them somewhere secluded to have Nick Carter dig their unmarked graves. We should also make sure to have him dig a third as an intimidation tactic. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna bury him in it once we have what we need anyways. That said, if I'm Goldilocks in this situation, that is exactly what I'd be expecting right now. These guys have already shown their faces in connection with multiple life sentences worth of illegal pharmaceuticals. They'd have to be completely insane to leave a witness behind capable of describing both of them and their getaway vehicle. Point being, there is no way I'm taking them to the stash location. Instead, I'd use my knowledge of the area as one of the local scumbags to lead them down some of the most popular trails in hopes we run across a ranger. We could also try to find some dense vegetation we could use to break line of sight after making a run for it. Worst case scenario, I'd much rather risk a gunshot to the torso from several yards away than straight to the back of the head at point blank. So at some point, we may just have to make a break for it, especially if they start to see through our ruse. Lucky for what's-his-name, he and his new friends aren't the only ones out here. While the three of them search for the stash point, Dee Dee's mom, Sari, is out with the biologist and forest ranger searching for her missing daughter. Sadly, she only finds Henry, which means Dee Dee's probably about halfway to the punchline of a bear in the wood joke right now. Although, if that's the case, they might be reunited sooner than she realizes, because here comes Blow Bear for another serving of Manwich. What, are there two of them now? Well, as long as there aren't more than 6, we have a chance, as Ranger Liz is packing her service revolver. Only problem is, they apparently never showed her how to use it, specifically the part about actually seeing what you're trying to shoot at. Seriously, it's a miracle no one caught a slug the way she was frantically winging them off like that. A .357 Magnum wouldn't be my first choice going up against an enraged bear, but in the right hands, it would be more than sufficient to get the job done. Hell, in 1953, Bella Twin used a single-shot .22 to kill the largest grizzly on record. So, as long as we can beam her in the brains, we'll be in good shape. But before we can do that, we'll have to find her. And given the sheer amount of concealment for her to hide behind, the best way to go about that would be letting her come to us. In that case, I'd have everyone fall back to Henry's tree and put their backs to it. This'll give us pretty much 360 degrees of surveillance, and with Henry's elevated POV, you could potentially call out the bear's position before it even comes into view for us. Once the target presents itself, we put the tree between ourselves and it, and let our shooter lean out for the 1 tap, or however many taps are required. Speaking of which, how we place our shot depends on the bear's position and behavior. She'll most likely be facing directly towards us, so in that case, we'll want to send the bullet straight up her nose. Aiming any higher or lower than that, and we'll almost certainly miss the vital parts of the brain needed for immediate results. And there have been cases of shots glancing off the sides of a bear's skull without having any effect on the animal, so accuracy is key, especially in the event of a charge. Of course, once Ranger Liz bravely leaves the others to their fates, there's really nothing anyone can do besides basic bear attack stuff. Well, almost nothing. You see, at one point, biologist Bucky Larson stumbles upon enough nose candy to put down an elephant, so with a little luck and careful timing, we might be able to end this nightmare like the true story, with one dead bear covered in. I'd grab as many bricks as I could and tear them open. Then, once the beast gets in close, I try to hit her in the face with as much powder as possible and hope she inhales enough of it to blow her frickin' head off. It's not exactly foolproof, especially since she's clearly already hooked on the stuff, but without any effective weapons and an attack already in progress, it's pretty much our only shot at this point. Instead, what we get is Captain Kangaroo shimmying up another tree like an absolute brainlet, as if any legitimate biologist wouldn't know that bears can basically sprint up a tree trunk, like so. See, he got eaten. Should've gone with plan C. Okay, well, to be fair, he did acknowledge his mistake shortly before the end, but that doesn't change the fact that he should've known better from the very beginning. Again, basic bear safety. You learn this stuff in grade school. The good news is that he kept the bear busy long enough for Sari and Henry to make a clean getaway, so hopefully they won't let his sacrifice go to waste by constantly doing the dumbest imaginable, like continuing to search for your missing progeny with a man-eating kid prowling around. Sure, I get most mothers wouldn't just give up on their daughter, but she could at least change up her approach a bit. I mean, for starters, neither of them have any idea where Dee Dee could be. All they know is where she was planning to go before the attack, which is certainly a good place to start, but what if she isn't there? Or what if she is there but is too grievously injured to be safely moved? Then you have to split up and send someone all the way back to call for help. And as we've already seen, it's pretty dangerous out here right now. Which brings me to my next point. There's no telling when we might run into the bear again. Under normal circumstances, the best way to keep black bears away is to make a ton of noise while walking through the woods. But this one's clearly lost all fear of man, so if anything, trail songs and bear bells might very well attract it. Besides, how do we know there aren't any other cracked out critters running around out here? Do we really want to risk getting rolled on by a couple dozen loaded raccoons? Ultimately, we should take advantage of the distraction and go back to the ranger station to make sure help is on the way and properly brought up to speed, instead of blindly trusting a critically injured old park ranger to limp her way back without getting mogged on by Mother Nature. Oh, and by the way, Ranger Liz is literally the only other person that knows we're up here right now. So if she goes and we get lost, there is a legitimate possibility no one has any idea where to even start looking for us. And wouldn't you know it, she doesn't even bother calling for backup down at the station. She just tells one of the banged up punks from earlier to call an ambulance without sparing so much as 3 seconds to make sure he understands the scope of the situation. Then again, I'm not even sure she understands it, given she only asked him to call an ambulance, as opposed to literally anyone who routinely carries a firearm. Even Bubba with his granddad's old deer rifle will do right now, provided he can actually hit what he's aiming at.
That's a f***ing bear.
She missed. Well, don't just stand there. You've still got 5 more reasons why mankind's number 1 on the food chain. The bear was sitting perfectly still, like 10 feet away, and continued to sit there for a solid 5 seconds after her first shot. Now it could be anywhere, meaning we're pretty much trapped here for the foreseeable future. That said, this is far from the worst position we could be in at the moment. The office provides a decent amount of protection, and we have a direct means of communication with the outside world. All we need to do now is hunker down in the back room and keep our revolver trained on the entrance until help arrives. Even baked to the gills, the bear will have to come in through either a door or a window, during which time we'll have a fairly easy shot. Well, unless you're Liz. At this point, I gotta wonder why she'd still be going out of her way to smoke this thing after whiffing so miserably on 2 separate occasions. As for young Bozo over there, he should really find a place to hide that's not in direct line of sight of the danger ranger, because right now, I'd say the only safe place is what she's trying to hit.
I got it.
Holy shit. Did you honestly think the 400-pound black bear was about to squeeze itself way down the chimney? What planet are you from? Oh, well, perfect timing, I guess, because here comes the meat wagon to scoop up what's left of them. Of course, without Tweedledum knowing about the bear when he called, these two have absolutely no idea what they're about to walk in on. Although, once they see the dude with the massive gaping hole in his head and armed ranger dying in a pool of her own blood, they should probably get the idea. This is not a good place to be right now. Seriously, do the words "seen unsafe" mean anything to you? Drag the lady out of there if you can, but right now the only correct move is backing off in the ambulance and having the cops clear this place out. I mean, for all you know, there's a homicidal maniac in the back room eating all the free lollipops, or worse.
Beth, we should go.
Bro, don't you think you might be leaving out some pretty important information? You know, like how you saw a massive blood-splattered furball lapping up the remains of its most recent victim? Nah, probably not worth mentioning. No point in getting the out of there either. Just go ahead and stand there like a lemon and assume the cheap interior door latch will be enough to contain a creature the size of a Volkswagen. Okay, I know I said never run from a bear, but in this extremely specific case, I'm willing to make an exception. Besides, right now, its line of sight is obstructed, which should give you enough of a head start to make it back to the ambulance without getting munched on. I mean, at the very least, stand far enough away from the door that you don't become hopelessly screwed the second it comes down. Just like you are right now. Well, that was lucky. No way in a million years would I have ever assumed he'd make it out of there with his head in one piece, especially since he would have no way of knowing the bear would mistake his medical bag for another score. Honestly, were I in his position, I would have probably grabbed the knife and went for the Revenant kill, which almost certainly would have resulted in having my head bitten in half like that dude in Army of the Dead. Of course, only an idiot would have let himself get pinned like that in the first place, so I guess it cancels out. Either way, this next part's easy. All we have to do is get in the van, close the doors, and drive away. Except you just know the Wonder Twins are gonna fumble it. And it all starts with Tom telling Beth to gun it before he's even inside. Yeah, let's break down the stupidity on that one real quick. You're worried that a bear will reach the vehicle before you can get in and close the door, but the bear is faster than you, meaning if you can still reach the van, then so can she. Only now, it'll be much harder for you to shut the door because the ambulance is moving, which is why this happened. Looks like someone forgot about rule number 4. Then again, once I knew the bear was in the ambulance, I probably would have slammed on the brakes and left the bear to enjoy its boxed lunch in peace. Bonus points if we could sneak around to the back and shut the doors to buy ourselves extra time to escape. Well, I guess that's it for backup then. Fortunately for Team Siri, there's still a pair of violent criminals and their degenerate hostage poking around here, and they won't be hanging it up anytime soon, especially since the punk's hiding place turned out to be a bust. Literally.
Where's the
Put the gun down and move away from the teenager.
Should've just shot him, dude. Aside from in his hand, I mean. Sure, you have the high ground, but that doesn't really help you when he could pop out from literally any angle and shoot you in the head. Now you're stuck in a Mexican standoff you probably won't be walking away from, due in part to the fact that you can't actually get down from there without making yourself extremely vulnerable to gunfire. Oh, yeah, this is Bob. He's been working the falling snow case ever since it landed in his lap a couple days ago. Evidently, he also has superhuman speed, as he was somehow able to reach this location on foot despite having arrived at the park well after Addie and David started their guided tour. I mean, I guess Eminem could have taken them the long way, as I previously suggested, but nah, we're going with super speed here. What I really don't get is why on earth he'd even be on top of the gazebo in the first place. Like, you couldn't have just found a big stick to knock the duffel bag down? Besides, you already knew from your informant that a couple goons would be out here looking for this stuff, so why risk a sprained ankle knowing you could run into them at any second? And that's not all you could run into.
Nobody move. It's a bear.
Correct. It's a bear, not an animatronic T-Rex. Standing still isn't gonna make you invisible to her, especially when David has 2 blown-off fingers that she could probably smell from a mile away. That being said, you wouldn't have had to have seen the rest of the story to realize there's something wrong with this critter, which only makes her even more wildly unpredictable. In that case, David should do them all a favor and dose her in the head before she does something they all regret, like collapsing directly on top of Eddie. Well, that was fun. So here's an idea. How about we use our temporary truce with Bob to make sure it's dead? And I don't mean listening for a heartbeat. Again, even a 9mm will do a bear in if used correctly. In this case, the most direct path to the brain will be the side of the head. He should place the muzzle between the center of the eye and ear and squeeze off about 2 or 3, after which he'll still have plenty of ammunition to resume hostilities with the detective. Oh, right. We'd still have to get Eddie out of there. On second thought, we can do that later. Dude's been pretty much completely useless this entire episode, so it's not like we'd be losing out. Plus, having a giant bear carcass on top of you could come in handy once the bullets start flying. However, before David can act decisively and put Mrs. Berenstain down for good, the party animal catches a whiff of the herbal remedy she had stashed away and decides life's worth living again. And the results are interesting. Keep in mind, at any time while Eddie is being assaulted by this thing, David could easily walk up and blow her frickin' brains out. But I guess the appeal of advancing human knowledge by observing the effects of pain on a bear is simply too great to pass up. Luckily, Bob was able to use this experience to devise a surefire method of luring the creature away, only for David to pick things up where they left off.
Bag's worth 14 million.
Can't you see I'm trying to help you, kid?
I need that bag.
Dude, well, that's one way of thanking the man that saved your friend. I'm joking, of course. We all know David is a virtuous, upstanding criminal who would never do such a thing. Instead, the shot was fired by the kingpin himself. Evidently, Sid felt the guys were taking too long to scour an entire national park for a bunch of small objects and decided to take matters into his own hands. And not a moment too soon. That showdown back at the gazebo was going nowhere. Plus, with his hunting rifle, our margin for error in targeting the bear increases significantly. A single well-placed shot behind the shoulder should be enough to put her lights out for good. Only question now is where to find her. Judging by her rate of consumption, I'd expect it to be in the back room of an ASU party, but given we're in Georgia right now, that's probably not the case. I could tell you where she will be, right here in this cave where Henry and Siri just found a couple frosted bear cubs sacrificing their futures for a short-term rush. And that's not all they found.
Dee Dee!
Dee Dee!
Keep you warm.
Oh my gosh, you found my sweater!
Smart girl, you left us clues.
Smart girl. She's literally spent the last few hours hanging out with fucking bear cubs. How much dumber can you get? Oh, and let's not forget that this cave is right beside the waterfall she intended to hike to in the first place, which means she would have had known her way back the entire time she's been sitting here waiting for Cokie the bear to come rip her in half like a phone book. Not only that, but the fact that she was able to find this place suggests she was never lost in the first place, meaning she could have laid low for a while and circled back once she lost sight of the bear, meaning she never would have had to lead her mom and best friend through God knows how many miles of bear country looking for her, meaning she's an absolute moron. And apparently the apple fell straight down, because instead of demanding they leave immediately to put as much distance between themselves and the bear cubs as possible, Siri decides to stand around talking until the sound of approaching footsteps forces them deeper into the cave. Fortunately, it's just Sid and company on the trail of their missing product. Unfortunately, he's not exactly sympathetic to their situation.
There's kids here. Let's just go.
No, I'm not leaving without that toy. So somebody better bring it down, or somebody else is gonna die.
Sounds simple enough to me, but it turns out Sid is the only one of these bozos that hasn't completely forgotten which industry they're in. You know, the one that's annihilated countless lives of men, women, and children all across the planet. Both those directly involved in its operation and totally innocent bystanders. Of course, this dissension in the ranks spells great news for Team Siri. If I were in her shoes, I'd keep quiet and slowly creep closer to Eddie and David to make it harder for Sid to land a clean shot. I mean, we can't exactly trust any of these people, but it's either that or jump into the falls. And without knowing how deep they are, there is no way I'm doing that unless we're about to die. Thankfully, that's probably not going to be an issue, as the bear cubs seem to have taken a liking to old Uncle Sid, or at the very least, the millions of dollars worth of products he's lugging around. Yet, despite holding a freaking hunting rifle, he can't seem to work out how he could possibly get rid of them. Gosh, yeah, that's a tough one. Better just toss the weapon over to the dude with only one functional hand and let him take care of it.
I am taking the f***ing children.
Jesus Christ. Imagine losing your entire illicit empire because you suck at throwing. Or was it because you're too damn stupid to realize you could have just butt-stroked the cubs and kicked them over the edge? Whatever. Might as well just let them leave and go back for the bag later. Sure, there are extra witnesses, but you're probably not gonna live long enough to make it to court anyway. And that's especially true now, because look who showed up for dinner. Again.
She's protecting the cubs. We need to jump.
I'm sorry, what did you just say? Jump? In there while you're holding a rifle. What an absolute failure of parenting. You're really gonna take a coin toss that your daughter and her friend won't splatter their brains on a rock instead of simply shooting the bear, forcing the narcos onto the ground at gunpoint and walking out of there completely unharmed. Spare me that absolute garbage. I hope that water's only 8 inches deep down there. You complete and utter imbecile. Awesome. Meanwhile, Sid wastes pretty much no time terminating the threatening animal with extreme prejudice like a totally normal human being. Only it seems his aim was a little off. Dude totally missed the brain pan, and he's really gonna regret that here in a second, because Popeye's about to have her spinach.
a drug.
I mean, for Christ's sake, the bear literally spits out one of the slugs when she climbs back up to the ledge. Question is, why can't he just shoot her again? I mean, you'd have to be out of your mind to put the gun down at a time like this. That bear is literally gonna rip out your living guts and feed them to her cubs. All because the legendary Goodfella himself forgot the first rule of firearms. Have one. And with that, the world is short one Coke Lord. Although, let's be real, there's gotta be thousands more willing to take his place at a moment's notice. As for the rest of the gang, they all survived the leap of faith into the falls because of course they did. And they all lived happily ever after, including the 3 bears, who continue eating backpackers while zoinked out of their minds until this very day. In the end, Dee Dee was reunited with her mother, and Eddie and David are free to maybe turn their lives around, but probably not. Of course, a ton of innocent and not so innocent people checked out along the way. However, in all but a few cases, had they exercised not only basic bear and firearm safety, but also basic common sense, Mama Bear wouldn't have even made it to the ranger station. For that reason, I think Bear was beat. Moral of the story, don't ever run from a bear, but don't just stand there staring at it like a dumbass either. And don't forget to check out the Wonder AI app by clicking the link in the description.